Breaking news, people! Grab your popcorn, clutch your pearls, maybe even call your therapist, because what I'm about to tell you will absolutely blow your mind. Imagine this: the picture-perfect family you've been watching on reality TV, the one that loves to flaunt their unity, their wealth. There we've got it all together. Vib turns out to be nothing more than a messy soap opera unraveling in real time. That's right, Todd Tucker, yes, Mr. Todd himself, has allegedly pointed the finger directly at his own stepdaughter, Riley, blaming her for none other than Kandi Barusa's declining mental health. Wait, what? Did Todd actually just make Riley the villain in this family drama? Or is this just another classic case of reality stars playing the victim card to cover up their own mess? Think about it. Riley, the daughter Kandi has fiercely protected since day one, is suddenly being thrown under the bus by the man who was supposed to step up and be the bonus dad of the century. Can you believe that? And if you think this is just your average family squabble, think again. Because what's surfacing now involves secret feuds, whispered betrayals, and even claims that Riley herself has been sabotaging the family dynamic from the inside. Is this a teenage rebellion gone nuclear, or has Todd finally exposed the real reason Kandi is crumbling behind closed doors? Stay tuned, because this is about to get darker, juicier, and a whole lot more controversial than anyone expected. For years, the public has been presented with the shining image of Kandi, Burrus, and Todd Tucker as the ultimate reality television power couple, who had everything under control, while managing careers, business ventures, and a blended family that looked almost flawless on the surface. But what people are now beginning to see is that this polished image was nothing more than a carefully staged illusion, because behind the scenes cracks were forming that could no longer be hidden. And at the very center of this storm is the shocking claim that Todd has turned his frustrations toward Riley, Kandi's daughter from her previous relationship, and accused her of being the reason for Kandi's worsening mental health. The very idea of a grown man publicly or even privately blaming his stepdaughter for his wife's struggles is enough to spark outrage. Yet, when we look closer at the timeline, the tension has been simmering for years, as Riley never truly accepted Todd as a father figure, no matter how many family dinners or staged photo ops were shared online. Those who followed their journey from the beginning remember how Todd tried to step into the role of the supportive stepdad, but Riley's loyalty to her biological father and her skepticism toward Todd's place in her mother's life created a wedge that only grew deeper as time passed. And while Kandi worked tirelessly to balance her daughter's feelings with her husband's desire for respect, the unspoken resentment began to take a heavy toll. Anonymous whispers from those allegedly close to the family suggest that behind closed doors, arguments over Riley became a constant theme, with Todd feeling as though he could never win her approval, and Riley seeing him as nothing more than an obstacle to her mother's attention. When sources claim that Kandi broke down in tears during family therapy sessions because she felt torn between the two people she loved most, you can begin to understand the emotional minefield that has been walked on for years. But here is where the story takes a more sinister turn. Because according to supposed leaked conversations, Todd finally snapped and told confidants that Riley was sabotaging not only his bond with Kandi, but also Kandi's ability to focus on her own well-being, framing Riley as the hidden antagonist who thrives on keeping the family divided. Such words may sound shocking, but they have been circulating in online forums and gossip blogs with alarming speed, with one alleged insider claiming Todd believed Riley deliberately resisted every attempt at peace simply to test her mother's loyalty. Imagine the magnitude of this accusation. A stepfather accusing a teenage daughter of essentially causing her mother to spiral mentally and emotionally. A storyline that practically writes itself for reality television, but is far more disturbing when you realize these are real people navigating real pain. The public, meanwhile, has been quick to pick sides, with some fans rushing to defend Riley by pointing out that no child should bear the burden of responsibility for an adult's mental state, while others have argued that Todd has been unfairly villainized for simply speaking the truth that everyone else was too afraid to admit. In the middle of all this chaos stands Kandi, the woman who has always branded herself as the peacemaker, the glue that holds the family together, suddenly finding herself caught in the crossfire of an emotional war that seems impossible to win. Those who have followed her career know that. Kandi has always been outspoken about protecting her children and ensuring their happiness above all else. Yet this revelation puts her in a situation that no mother would ever want to face, because if Todd is publicly or privately blaming Riley, then Kandi must decide whether to defend her daughter at the cost of her marriage, or stand by her husband and risk fracturing her relationship with her child. The situation only grows murkier when you factor in the ongoing tension between Riley and Todd's daughter Kayla, because multiple accounts have suggested that the girls' inability to bond has been another layer of stress fueling Kandi's exhaustion. Instead of growing into sisterly allies in this blended household, they became distant and occasionally combative, each retreating into their own world while Kandi clung to the hope that time would heal the rift. Instead, what developed was a family environment where silence and unspoken tension became the norm. And when Kandi finally admitted in an interview that her mental health was suffering, it became clear that these internal battles were taking a toll far greater than the public had realized. The striking detail in all of this is Todd's alleged choice to stop being silent and confront the issue head-on by directly addressing Riley and demanding that she put aside past grievances for the sake of the family. Reports claim he framed it not as a demand to see him as her father, but as a plea to view him as an ally rather than an enemy. Yet even in that attempt at reconciliation, the underlying message of blame was impossible to ignore. When you tell a young woman that she needs to step up to fix the family dynamic, you are essentially placing the responsibility of adult relationships on her shoulders. And that is exactly what has sparked outrage across social media platforms, where hashtags condemning Todd's behavior have trended, with thousands of comments echoing the sentiment that children should not be scapegoats for adult failures. Still, there remains a vocal minority arguing that Riley is no longer a child and that her refusal to cooperate has dragged the family down long enough, giving Todd's side of the story a sliver of credibility among those who believe tough love is sometimes necessary. With every leaked detail, the scandal grows larger, the lines of loyalty become blurrier, and the question of who is truly at fault remains unanswered. But one thing is clear: what was once sold as the flawless model of a blended family has crumbled into a mess of accusations, pain, and betrayal, and the world is now watching with morbid fascination as each secret peels away to reveal even more tension beneath the surface. What makes this scandal even more gripping is the sudden wave of so-called investigative findings that have leaked into the public eye, painting a picture far more chaotic than anyone had ever expected, because what was initially described as a simple clash of personalities between Riley and Todd has now been reframed by anonymous insiders as a deep-rooted power struggle filled with jealousy, financial disputes, and long-buried secrets that are now clawing their way to the surface. The internet has been buzzing with claims that Riley, Allegedly, felt alienated not only by Todd's presence in her mother's life, but also by the fact that Todd controlled more of the household decisions than most people realized, which supposedly left Riley believing that she was being edged out of her mother's inner circle. According to a source who insisted on remaining nameless but claimed to have witnessed private arguments, Riley confronted her mother multiple times about feeling as though Todd had manipulated Kandi into prioritizing him over her, and that every time Riley pushed back, Todd took it as a personal attack, leading to a vicious cycle of mistrust and resentment that poisoned the family atmosphere. To make matters even worse, leaked text messages allegedly show Todd venting to a close friend about Riley's attitude, where he supposedly described her as a constant headache who was dragging Kandi down and sabotaging their peace at home. A revelation that immediately set the online world ablaze with outrage and disbelief. The situation escalated further when social media detectives began digging into Todd and Kandi's lifestyle choices and pointed out that while they often flaunted their business ventures, luxury vacations, and extravagant purchases online, it was Riley who appeared increasingly distant from these displays, with several viral TikTok videos claiming Riley rarely joined family trips willingly and often looked uncomfortable in group photos. Some armchair analysts have gone as far as to suggest that Riley's apparent absence from key events was less about her being busy with school and more about her intentionally separating herself from what she viewed as a toxic environment where she never felt truly welcome. The contrast between Kandi's glossy portrayal of unity and Riley's visible distance only fueled speculation that the family had been faking harmony for years, all while hiding mounting fractures behind the scenes. And then came the bombshell, when a gossip site released what they claimed were financial documents indicating that Kandi had been covering large expenses for Riley, including tuition, housing, and luxury perks, while Todd privately expressed resentment that these costs were draining money he believed could be invested elsewhere in their businesses. Though the authenticity of these documents has not been verified, the mere suggestion that money could be at the heart of this family drama added a whole new layer of scandal, with some fans arguing that Todd resented Riley not only on an emotional level but also on a financial one, seeing her as a liability rather than a part of the family. As this narrative spread, the reactions online were explosive, with hashtags demanding justice for Riley and memes mocking Todd's alleged pettiness trending across Twitter and Instagram. Comment sections lit up with people taking sides, some blasting Todd for daring to frame a stepdaughter as the cause of her mother's stress, while others accused Riley of playing the victim and manipulating public sympathy. One viral tweet read, "If Todd really blamed Riley for Kandi's breakdown, then he has officially snatched the crown for worst stepdad of the decade," while another countered with, "Riley has been milking this storyline for years. Maybe Todd just said what everyone else was thinking." The polarization of opinions made it clear that this family drama had outgrown its private origins and become a public spectacle, with fans dissecting every interaction, every photo, and every rumor as though they were piecing together a crime scene. Even entertainment blogs that usually stayed clear of family disputes jumped in with lengthy op-eds about the dangers of blended families being turned into reality show fodder, and how Kandi's brand as a business-savvy mother might be permanently stained if she is seen as enabling Todd's alleged attacks on her daughter. Meanwhile, so-called anonymous sources continued to pour fuel on the fire, claiming that Todd was now pushing for a stricter household rules in a desperate attempt to reestablish order, while Riley was allegedly refusing to comply, creating a cold war inside the house where silence replaced conversations and tension could be cut with a knife. One source went as far as to allege that during a particularly heated exchange, Todd told Kandi that unless Riley changed her behavior, he could no longer promise to maintain his own mental stability, which many interpreted as an ultimatum disguised as concern. If true, such a statement reveals not only the depth of Todd's frustration, but also how precarious Kandi's position had become since she was forced to choose between her husband's demands and her daughter's independence, a choice no mother should ever be forced to make. What amplifies the intensity of this scandal is how easily it mirrors larger cultural conversations about stepfamilies' loyalty and the boundaries between parents and children. Many viewers see Riley's resistance as a natural response to a man who entered her life later and attempted to assert authority, while others sympathize with Todd's perspective that he has invested years of effort into building a relationship only to be stonewalled at every turn. The debate has turned this family conflict into a viral morality play, with fans debating who is right and who is wrong, while forgetting that behind the headlines and sound bites, there are very real emotions unraveling within those walls. Yet, in the court of public opinion, perception often matters more than truth, and at the moment, perception is rapidly turning against Todd. Clips of Riley looking somber during past reality show episodes are being reshared with captions like "she told us years ago," and compilations of Todd making stern comments are now recirculating as evidence of his alleged controlling nature, whether or not those clips were taken out of context. As the scandal continued to snowball, whispers of outside intervention began to emerge, with rumors that producers of the reality show had considered bringing in professional mediators or even temporarily halting filming to prevent further emotional damage, though nothing official has been confirmed. If such rumors prove accurate, it would demonstrate just how deeply the conflict has destabilized not only the family but also the brand they have worked so hard to maintain. For fans who once admired Kandi as the embodiment of balance and resilience, the sight of her breaking down under the weight of household conflict has been both shocking and strangely relatable, since many people know firsthand how messy blended families can become. Still, the most pressing question remains unresolved. Did Todd truly mean it when he allegedly told others that Riley was at the core of Kandi's stress? Or is this narrative being exaggerated by opportunistic insiders and gossip blogs looking to cash in on a juicy headline? Until definitive proof surfaces, the speculation continues to swirl, and with each passing day, the stakes only grow higher as more details leak and more opinions flood the digital arena, leaving everyone wondering whether the next revelation will finally break the fragile image of unity that Kandi and Todd have spent years constructing. As the days dragged on, what had begun as whispers of family tension transformed into a full-scale public meltdown, with media outlets circling like vultures, ready to pick apart every shred of gossip and speculation about Todd and Riley's deteriorating relationship and Kandi's fragile health. Insiders claim that behind closed doors, Kandi was struggling to hold herself together, with some describing her as a woman torn in two, forced to balance the loyalty she felt toward her daughter with the obligation she had to preserve her marriage and the business empire tied to it. This impossible balancing act allegedly led to sleepless nights, constant anxiety, and visible signs of exhaustion that even fans began pointing out during her public appearances. Observers noted that her once confident demeanor seemed shaky, her speeches less polished, her trademark smile not as convincing as it used to be, and in the ruthless world of celebrity branding, such cracks in the facade became ammunition for critics who insisted that her empire was crumbling from the inside out. On social media, armchair psychiatrists began weighing in, claiming that Kandi's stress levels were not just the result of personal drama, but also a symptom of long-term overwork and the impossible pressure of trying to be everything at once: a mogul, a wife, and a mother. The irony is that for years, Kandi built her reputation on being able to do it all, and now the very image of invincibility she cultivated was being weaponized against her as proof that she had finally met her breaking point. Meanwhile, Todd found himself under heavier scrutiny than ever before, with tabloids publishing hit pieces that painted him as a manipulative figure willing to sacrifice Riley's emotional well-being to maintain control over his household. Anonymous sources claimed that Todd had grown increasingly paranoid, convinced that Riley was deliberately turning Kandi against him and feeding gossip blogs insider information to destroy his reputation. Though there was no concrete proof to support this theory, the idea spread like wildfire because it perfectly fit the narrative of a messy reality TV scandal, and once the public decides a story, juicy enough, facts rarely stand in the way. Even everyday moments like Todd being spotted at a restaurant without Kandi were spun into speculation that he was either plotting damage control with lawyers or escaping the suffocating atmosphere at home. Fan forums became war zones where people dissected every angle, with some posters claiming Todd was a victim of unfair public judgment, while others argued that his refusal to take responsibility for his own role in the conflict was precisely why the situation spiraled out of control. The louder the voices grew, the more it seemed that no one actually cared about the truth, but only about who could shout their version of the truth. The loudest dot in the midst of this chaos, Riley maintained a calculated silence that many interpreted as the ultimate act of resistance, since in the reality TV world, silence often speaks louder than words. While Todd allegedly ranted in private and Kandi appeared visibly strained, Riley's refusal to publicly comment turned her into a kind of symbolic figure for teenage rebellion against parental authority. Fan-made edits flooded TikTok, portraying her as a tragic heroine trapped in a toxic environment, while others criticized her for fueling speculation by not speaking up and clearing the air. Every public sighting of her, whether at a college event or simply walking with friends, became magnified as people looked for signs of whether she was coping, thriving, or secretly breaking down. What was once a private family issue had now been hijacked by the public as a form of entertainment where complete strangers felt entitled to weigh in as though they were jury members in a case that would decide the fate of everyone involved. The disturbing part is that the more people dissected Riley's role, the more the narrative shifted from being about family dynamics to being about celebrity culture itself and how easily personal pain can be packaged and sold as content for mass consumption. As tension mounted, rumors of possible legal intervention began to swirl, with whispers that child welfare advocates had taken an interest in the case given the psychological toll the situation was allegedly taking on Riley. Though no official investigation has been confirmed, the idea of lawyers or government agencies stepping in sent shockwaves through fan communities who immediately began speculating about custody battles, lawsuits, or even restraining orders that could split the family apart permanently. Others suggested that if Todd continued to be portrayed as the villain, his business ventures might take a financial hit, with sponsors and partners quietly distancing themselves to avoid being dragged into the controversy. The possibility of financial fallout added yet another layer of dread, because in the world of celebrity empires, money is often the glue that holds fragile relationships together, and once that glue starts to crack, everything else collapses with it. By the time the story reached this fever pitch, it had transcended simple gossip and morphed into a full-blown cultural phenomenon, with commentators from outside the entertainment world chiming in about what this saga revealed about family dynamics, gender roles, and the toxic demands of fame. Everyone from pop culture bloggers to social critics seemed to have an opinion, and the louder those voices grew, the more suffocating the pressure on Kandi became. What started as a private conflict had snowballed into an uncontrollable storm, and now the entire world was watching with morbid fascination, waiting for the next shocking revelation to drop. So, here we are, standing at the edge of one of the messiest celebrity scandals to ever shake reality TV, and the question is no longer whether Todd Tucker really blamed Riley for Kandi's health problems, but rather what this revelation means for the future of their entire empire. Will Kandi finally put her foot down and protect her daughter no matter the cost? Or will she bend under pressure to preserve the image of a perfect blended family that has already shattered before our eyes? Will Todd come forward with his side of the story in a desperate attempt to clear his name, or will he retreat into silence, hoping the storm passes before it drowns him completely? And most importantly, what role does Riley play in this circus, now that she has become the unwilling symbol of defiance and the unexpected face of resistance against a man who once claimed to be her protector? I want to hear your thoughts. Do you believe Todd crossed the line, or do you think Riley is secretly fueling the fire? Drop your opinions in the comments below, and let's settle this debate together. Like this video, share it with everyone, and subscribe for more shocking exposes.